Hi, good morning. I'm Amanda Madden with the Society for Italian Historical Studies. And today we're talking with Gianmarco Mancosu, who is the winner of this year's Prize in Modern Italian History. Congratulations, auguri, for his article, Watching Films in Italian East Africa, 1936 to 1941. And we're going to talk to him today a little bit about his work. So again, congratulations. So I just have a couple of questions for you. Just want to hear more about this article and the work. My first question is, just tell us a little bit about this article and how you feel like it fits into your larger picture of research and where you find yourself in, the historical debates.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. And of course, I'm very grateful for this wonderful prize, which flatters me. And thanks to the Society for Italian Historical Studies and for the committee who read and selected my article. So just speaking about my, let's say, research profile, I'm an historian of Italian colonialism, and my field of expertise is especially in the production and circulation of propaganda images about the Italian/fascist colonies. I try to entangle historical reconstruction of institutions and political practices with the textual analysis of, again, text, films, and representation. And while I was carrying out my doctoral research, I found, honestly, pretty unexpectedly, very interesting documents about the circulation of films in the fascist empire in Libya, Eritrea, Somalia, and Ethiopia during the Italian colonization, and especially during the occupation of Ethiopia, 1936-1941. And serendipity, it's a very important matter in historical research, in archival research. And at that time, the primary source about this strand of my research were very patchy. But since then, I started to look more specifically on this aspect. And I was fascinated about the organizational aspect of film consumption. So on the ways in which an entertainment could become a political tool to control the geographical, but also human and social landscape of the empire. And basically, the article is the result of this historical and cultural reflection of this aspect. I've more specifically reconstructed the organization of mobile shows through cine tracks, so tracks with film tools for screenings, but also the regulation and progressive racialization of the film consumption in stable movie theaters. And just to methodologically frame my article, I have adopted a long-term and transnational perspective that, in my opinion, is instrumental to assess the fascist intervention in the field of film consumption, because film consumption pre-existed in Africa to fascism. But also I wanted to contextualize, to compare the fascist use of film in Africa and comparing it to other more studied experiences like the British Empire or the French ones. And the main result is that basically fascism did not succeed in setting up a segregated space of film consumption. As we all know, fascists try to organize its imperial society according to hierarchical racial categories. But in the field of film consumption, it did not happen, basically, because it was materially and practically impossible to fully segregate the audiences. And it's also a metaphor of the incomplete fascistization of the social life in the short-lived and brutal fascist empire.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful to hear more about this article. I kind of wanted to follow up on this. Can you tell us a little bit about the sources that you were working in for this article? I mean, one would presume films, but there are probably other really interesting sources that you found.
Yeah, there is on multiple kind of sources, because, dealing with political as well as cultural and social aspects required me to use a multidisciplinary perspective to tackle this issue. And of course, I worked with paper sources, so paper produced by the Fascist administration, and especially by the Ministero della Cultura Popolare, the cultural office in fascist Italy, yet also by the colonial office and by the colonial administrative offices in Africa, to see also the different understandings of film as a means to control and to, to set this kind of racial organization in the empire. So primary source, paper source stored in, very traditional archives like the Central State Archive in Rome, the Foreign Office of Archive in Rome as well. But of course, I've used also very personal records written, for instance, by Istituto Luce's operator, who run the film tracks, the cine tracks, and who basically brought films throughout the empire in very remote areas, and they wrote all this report. And they told, for instance, that African people were scared at some point in seeing moving images, because it was kind of a big news for them, a big novelty for them. And also found very useful the cine magazines, the fascist cine magazines, in which, intellectuals, not always related to fascism, but related also to the big debates about films, the use of films in Europe and in Africa as well. So they wrote a lot about the instrumental use of film to control what they called the primitive minds. And they were very useful, and they are all digitalized in the website of the Cineteca Nazionale, so the main film archive, Italian film archive. And of course, I use lots of films, lots of newsreels, and also photographs about the shows that were held in Africa. So there is this kind of very multifaceted corpus of film. I try to entangle anything and to put everything consistently together. And it was stressful at some point, but also very rewarding at the end of the process.
Well, I have to say that's an impressive array of sources. So that's really, really interesting. You said something else I want to ask you about. You talked about serendipity in the archive, which we all love, right? When we find unexpected sources. So what is your favorite archival find?
Oh, well, it's a very tough question, but maybe the best one is the unexpected one. So for instance, when I was looking more specifically at the Istituto Luce, so the fascist state propaganda branch, and I was expecting to find very consistent, let's say, archival groups in which you can spend 2 weeks and reconstruct anything. Basically, was impossible for different vicissitudes that happened, other documents about the Istituto Luce in the post-war period. Anyway, I found truly interesting report by a film theater owner, so the owner of a cinema, basically in Asmara, who was called Mario Baracchia. And I reconstructed the micro history of Baracchia, because he owned and he ran public shows in a very specific area of Asmara, which became the indigenous area according to the fascist racial organization. And Baracchia wrote that people from Asmara and, let's say, African people could not afford the price of the tickets to go to see films, and he basically had to close his movie theater, and he got back in Italy, in Latina, and he reopened a new cinema in Latina. So this very micro history are very interesting, and sometimes, touching, and the materialization of history, the flesh and blood, let's say, that of the historical research is one of the most interesting aspects of our work, I think.
Agreed, absolutely agreed. That's a fascinating find. So my last question for you today is, you say you're in Cagliari right now, which has some of the best food, in my opinion, in Italy. Controversial, of course, is going to be a controversial statement for whoever you talk to. So, where's the best gelateria in Cagliari?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I'm very lucky one because there are two very close to my house, but I think that you have a very good options to get a very good gelato. But I'm basically a lazy one, so the closest the better.
What flavor do you recommend? What's your favorite flavor?
I will recommend, I don't remember the name, but one which is very close to the harbor. It's called Stefino. I just remember.
Okay.
I think that they were Sicilian, but they work very well in Sardinia too. And the pistachio gelato there is kind of heavenly.
That's one of my favorite flavors. So thank you for that recommendation.
Okay.
And thank you for talking to us today. We're really excited to hear more about your work, and congratulations again on your wonderful article and winning the prize this year.
Thank you so much. I'm truly happy again. Grazie a tutti e a tutti.